Hello fellow Jerry Kent. So I just got back from watching Spider-Man No Way Home. So here are my thoughts on it. And I have to say it was okay. It was an enjoyable movie that had a lot of great moments that fans may like, but I saw a lot of missed potentials in the story, and the movie could have been better. I also think this movie is very similar to the actual best Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse, and it kind of pales in comparison, to be honest. This movie also didn't reveal much information in the trailers. There's a lot of things I want to talk about that can't be talked without me spoiling everything, so warning, there will be a spoiler section. Now then, let's get to it. When I heard this movie's premise through the trailers that it was gonna be a Sam Raimi and Amazing Spider-Man nostalgia fan service festival, I was really worried. I mean, the last movie ended on a cliffhanger with Peter's identity getting revealed to the world. So the story had to balance that while doing multiverse shenanigans at the same time too? What? And the last two Spider movies that tried to deal with too many storylines and fan services ended up in failure. Thankfully, I'm happy to report the story didn't feel like a clusterfuck, at least for the most part. Despite all the plot lines in the story, it did still feel like Spider-Man was the center and main character of the story, and Tom Holland is great as always. I also really like MJ and Ned from the past two movies, and they got some actual good screen time with really funny moments. I think Zendaya's acting ability is really underrated, and she's starting to grow on me with this movie. The villains are also really good too, and Jon Watts did a very good job balancing the villains. Even though there are 5 of them, every villain got decent story bits with neat fanservice sprinkled in for the fans. The interactions between each multiverse villain probably made the ticket price worth it. Speaking of villains, Alfred Molina and William Dafoe are fucking awesome in the movie. I remember Dafoe being underutilized as a boring fuddy-duddy in that Aquaman movie, but this movie made me remember, oh yeah, this guy played one of the most fun and hammy comic book supervillains ever put on screen.
You know how much I sacrifice?
Dafoe doesn't wear the cheesy, OG, stupid Power Rangers-esque green mask, and you can see his face on screen the whole movie. So this movie will be a treat for Dafoe stans like me. Now finally, before I get to spoilers, I really like the movie's theme. The whole plot feels like a moral dilemma, not Peter trying just to beat up a bad guy like in the past 2 MCU Spidey films. I really like that aspect, and it really felt like a Spider-Man movie that deals with responsibility, self-sacrifice, and trying to be good when you have power and stuff. I like it when my superhero movies are not trying to take down a generic bad guy, cough cough Zack Snyder DCU cough cough. So I really like the fact that this movie accomplished that. Now the whole premise of the movie is that Peter Parker's identity got revealed to the world, and his friends are suffering. MJ and Ned can't get into college, which is actually a pretty simple but effective real life drama that anyone can relate to. So Peter goes to Doctor Strange to conjure a magic that will make everyone forget Peter Parker was Spider-Man. But because the movie needs to happen, he fucks up the spell and various multiverse villains begin to show up in the MCU. Now what I meant in Moral Dilemma is that Peter could just send these guys back to their worlds with a push of a button, but then he hears that all these villains are not well and destined to die, minus Sandman I think. I don't know, I never watched the Garfield movies. He decides he will try to rehabilitate the villains before sending them back so they don't get killed. There are actually no major villains of the story, and the whole point of the movie is Peter trying to help these poor souls. So this is what I meant when I said I like this movie, is about Peter facing a moral dilemma. And because in Spider-Man stories, if you try to be nice, you get fucked up, Norman Osborn ended up killing Aunt May. I really did not expect that to happen because everyone liked Aunt May in MCU, so that really took me and the audience by surprise. It really did feel very sad when she died. Peter tried to do the right thing, and his aunt ends up dying. That is some really dark, gruesome, depressing shit, and I love it. However, after Aunt May's death scene, the movie started to lose me. I think I began to get a bit disappointed when Tobey and Andrew shows up. And yes, the previous 2 Spider-Mans do show up. Big fucking surprise. Their villains are in the movie, so of course they'll be in the movie. Why were so many people speculating and getting worried they won't be in it before the movie came out?
As of this taping, in or have any knowledge of being in the next Spider-Man movie?
I feel like
And yes, those leaked photos turned out to be real, so that was kind of funny as an audience. Anyways, the problem I have is, I felt like Tobey and Andrew's roles should have been bigger. Like, their introduction in the movie also felt kind of anticlimactic. They just show up in a room through a magical portal, and I wish they showed up during an action scene where MCU Peter is in trouble. Like, imagine if we had a scene where Peter tries to kill Norman for killing his aunt, like he does later in the movie, but that's the moment Tobey Spider-Man swings in and shows up for the first time in the movie to stop him. I don't know, I think these guys' entrances in the movie could have been executed better. That scene where Andrew starts to crawl on the ceiling felt meh. Also, Tobey and Andrew needed more scenes. You just basically get one scene of them preparing for the final battle and the last action battle scene. I wanted a scene together with them swinging the city, or I wanted something like Spider-Verse, like a scene where the experienced Peter Parker teaches the young hero on a mission. Tobey Spider-Man is clearly the oldest out of the three and the most experienced, so I want him to do some pep talk like Peter does to Miles Morales in Spider-Verse. He kinda does that, but it was basically just Andrew saying, "Yo, I lost my girlfriend," and Tobey saying, "Yo, I lost my uncle, we all lost everyone, and I wanted more." Speaking of Tobey, since I watched those movies as a kid, I wanted to find out more about him. When Tobey meets Otto, Dr. Octopus remarks he's grown, and Tobey says he's trying to be better. I think we should have gotten a flashback scene with the Raimi movies, or a scene set in Tobey's universe where we get a Kirsten Dunst cameo as Mary Jane or something, like how we got one with Peter B. Parker in the Spider-Verse movie. Because without it, it does feel like Tobey is just there and not doing much. Again, I can't help but compare Spider-Verse because they're both a movie about a bunch of Spoodermans trying to find a bunch of multiversal shit.
I gotta make Kingpin pay. You have to let me make him pay.
Miles, you're gonna get yourself killed.
But I'm ready. I promise.
Anyways, I don't know. It felt like Tobey was just there, and I wanted more out of him. I wanted more solo scenes with him and Doc Ock or Green Goblin. Speaking of the final action scene, I felt it was really bad. It takes place on the Statue of Liberty at night, so I could barely see anything and it just felt like a dumb CG power fight. I swear, Electro gave me Rise of Skywalker Exegol Lightning PTSD. I think they should have made the final action scene take place in downtown Manhattan at daytime so you can get classic Spider-Man swinging through buildings action. Finally, the ending made no sense to me, so Doctor Strange's magic starts to get out of control and is breaking the multiverse apart or something, so Peter decides to sacrifice himself by making everyone forget about Peter Parker, even including his friends and Doctor Strange. The sad scene where he says goodbye to MJ and Ned. What happens next, however, is questionable. So the whole world forgets Peter Parker existed, but Spider-Man still exists in the world? This makes no sense. Like, then in the new timeline, who did Tony Stark recruit for this team in Civil War? Happy Hogan still dated Aunt May in this timeline, but he only got to know Aunt May because she's Peter's aunt in the original timeline. I never thought they would actually try to adapt aspects of one of the most infamous and hated Spider-Man stories of all time, One More Day, where Peter and MJ's marriage got erased from history, and the retcons made no sense. Like that story, this eraser magic retcon makes no sense to the MCU timeline. Still, I like how everyone in the movie got a happy ending except Peter. The villains got rehabilitation, MJ and Ned got into college, the other two Spider-Man got to help their foes, and Andrew even had his redemption of saving Gwen moment. On the other hand, they literally took everything away from MCU Peter Parker, almost to the point where it's brutal. Everyone kept complaining how he's Iron Man Jr., so John Watts was like, "You guys don't like that? Fuck you. We're taking away his aunt, his girlfriend, his best friend, his house, his money, his high school graduate degree, any of his social status, his relationship with Iron Man, his fancy suit, his accomplishments, everything." Wow, MCU Spider-Man literally went from being the most happy Spidey to the most miserable, and I look forward to seeing where the character goes from here. Anyways, in short, I really like the humor and premise of the movie. All of the acting for the main characters and villains were great, and the themes were great. The first two thirds of the movie was great, but it lost me at the last third. I saw way too many missed opportunities, but what we got wasn't that bad. I think in my Pokemon Black and White review, I said I won't give numerical numbers in my reviews. Well, I think I should give them in first impression-esque review videos since this isn't in-depth analysis. So warning, this score is just my first impression, it may change in time or with repeated viewings. Anyways, I would like to give Spider-Man No Way Home a 7 out of 10.